Organizations have to change because the financial services industry is changing. So that's the bottom line. Regulatory reform, globalization, changing consumer demands, all of those things are external business drivers that are putting pressure on our financial institution clients. When you don't form an adaptable operating model, it has tremendous implications on managing the tension between functional and regional decision making. PwC recently put out a survey, and we found that 64% of financial services executives had stated that their company had undergone a significant restructuring at least once in the last year. Now, 64% is a significant number, although we expect to see things like increased M&A activity over the years to come, which means that there will be a lot of restructuring going on across the financial services industry in the next few years. So often what we see is that there are organizations that are able to shift gears and adjust to their changing business strategies. But what often happens with many clients is that they fail to develop the right operating model.
Operating models are driven from the strategy and the strategic intent of the organization. And when we think about the operating model, it's the business capabilities that you need to have. So to what extent you need to drive a client-centric focus within an organization, the governance and decision rights. It's the organization model. It's also the underlying processes and technology that you use to support the business. Finally, it's the talent strategy. So what does that workforce profile look like? All of those components make up an operating model. So the connection amongst these 5 different components we see as critical. And that's the piece that we see as missing when a number of institutions think about operating models. A number of our clients have and are redesigning their operating models. A number of those are large change initiatives requiring a lot of investment, requiring a lot of management time, and driving a lot of employee angst. The traditional model of reorganizing that could take anything from 6 to 18 months, dependent on how much process and technology change, is an outdated model. The ways for companies to think about operating model redesigns on a go-forward basis is what are the changes I can make to some of those components now, as opposed to it being a large enterprise-wide driven operating model restructuring. So when we think about how do you do this successfully, there's really 4 areas. There's a rapid diagnosis of the current situation. So really looking at whether it's an enterprise or whether it's a business unit or a particular function, what's working and what's not, and getting into issues and root causes, whether they be process, whether they be people, whether they be organization or decision-making related. Then coming up with a holistic business case around what's going to change. Are we going to put in new processes? Are we going to transfer some work out to a low-cost provider? Are we going to create shared functions? What are we going to do around the customer-facing roles? And having that business case and having leaders rally around and align and visibly committed to driving those benefits. Then it's about flawless execution. And when we see those 4 things being the focus, then and then really quickly getting back to business as usual and actually having leaders of functions think about, how do I adapt? How do I make tweaks once we've put those changes in place? Because it's not about having a restructuring every 6 months. It's building that ongoing capability so that you're able to adapt your operating model and flex to new situations.